Hi everyone, welcome to the Perfecto webinar around driving faster quality insights through customized test automation reports. My name is Eran Kinsbrunner from Perfecto. I have with me Tzvika Shachar from the product management team. Hi Tzvika.
Hi Eran, and hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
So in today's webinar, what we wanted to talk and present to you is the concept around driving quality analysis to customized and context-based test results and actually implementing the test cases with the debugging and reporting in mind. So this concept, which we are calling reporting test-driven development, will be the focus of today's webinar. And the webinar is going to be divided into two sections. The first one will be kind of an introduction to the whole topic of reporting. Between me and Tzvika, we'll just share some of the insights, challenges, pains which we are seeing, and then we'll dive to the solution, followed by a live demo that Tzvika is going to run part of our product, which we are evolving as we speak. So today's reality actually shows that the challenges are only growing, and what we are seeing in the market is that organizations are dealing with more tests that they need to execute per cycle, and this is driven by, as you can see on the left hand, the Perfecto cube, as we call it, different environments in which you need to cover your tests. Can be different networks, different locations, different personas on which you need to test your application, and this drives a growth in your test execution, the number of tests which you need to execute per each cycle. And each cycle can include functional tests, unit test cases, integration, and so forth. The number of execution is also growing. You're executing the test cases per commit, per each regression, and so forth. In addition, you're also seeing with the shift to CI, CD, DevOps, a release frequency that is growing. We see that organizations are trying to shift to a 2 weeks release, 3 weeks release, and this obviously puts more pressure when it comes to analyzing the overall test execution reports. By the way, in Perfecto R&D, we are releasing a cloud complex product every 3 weeks. Okay, so this is the reality. Tzvika, from your experience, and you're engaging almost on a daily basis with customers, what is the average number of test cases that our customers are dealing with on a daily basis, weekly basis?
So when we're looking at automation at scale, something that really takes more and more place among our customers, and as you mentioned, the number of test cases per cycle is growing, the number of execution is growing, and the release frequency is getting more often. We see an average amount of 10 to 11,000 tests a day per customer lab, running on a 2-week, 2-month basis.
Wow, so that's a huge number. And if you're looking at the left like visual here, number of tests per cycle, 11,000. This is a huge number to analyze on a even per sprint. It takes a lot of time. Yeah.
And so, to analyze all this data is really, not a simple thing.
Definitely, and this is, at the heart of our discussion today. This drives the pain and the challenge. The large data, the scale. Simply is turning into something that is very hard, very complicated, especially when we are dealing, and I'm currently showing what is the current mobile market state, when we are seeing the large fragmentation in the Android operating system together with the iOS. We see 4 or 5 different families of operating systems with 35,000 different unique smartphones and tablets for Android. So when you have 11,000 test cases distributed across these operating systems, it's simply very hard to pinpoint the issue once you have a failure. And in the web space, it's no different. We see, this is taken from our recent index, Digital Test Coverage Index report. You can see, Tzvika, that we are dealing with 33 different combinations just for web, So if you are developing and testing a responsive web application where you have mobile smartphones, tablets, and desktop browsers, and you have a failure, like just filtering based on the failures when you have so many permutations and environment conditions, this is very hard.
Yeah, it's a true challenge that we see our customers struggling with, and when we take a look, at the nice image that you're sharing now, we really see the difference or the way that things are lost in translation in many cases between developers and testers. And usually, when an issue is found in a progress stage and requires a fix, where a bug is found or other functional issue is being identified, we see in many cases the gap or the ability to consume limited picture from one side to the other, and we can give an example in some cases where a tester identify a bug in specific browser or specific operating system. That will usually ask if that's an environment issue, a device issue, a test issue, and then they would simply ask, do you get the same results on another browser or another operating system? And in many cases, this ping pong between the different teams take lots of time and make the feedback loop cycle even longer. The MTTR in these cases is usually longer, due again to limited visibility or different point of view between different teams in the organization.
Yes, and just bringing this visual to life. I've recently upgraded my smartphone. I have a Samsung Note 5. I recently upgraded it to Android 7. And I wanted to enjoy one of the features that Android 7 allows you, and one of them is the app shortcut. The ability to long press a specific application icon from the home screen and get some different capabilities rather than just launching the application in the foreground. And what I found out that, the basic Google Photos, the Google Photos native application simply crashes when I'm using the app shortcut. On a Nexus device, on other Nexus devices, it works fine. So when I see this visual, I simply think about the conversation developers and testers will have in this case. In this case will be the Google Photos. It works on my Nexus device, but unfortunately it doesn't work on all the environments. So this is the reality. And talking about reality, Tzvika, and you as the product manager for our reporting solution, we have done some research among our customers and our large database, and what we have found out is that between 35 to 50% of our audiences, they are simply struggling just to analyze. I'm not saying to get to the root cause of the issue, just to analyze this 11,000 number which you have just mentioned upon each test execution regression completion. Once they are done with the regression cycle, 20% of the audience says it takes them almost one business day, between like 8-9 hours, working hours, just to analyze and filter the test results before they're handing it to the developer to start doing the root cause analysis, the fixing, the regression testing, and everything. So this is a huge amount of time to spend, especially if you are running in an agile environment when you have a sprint of 2 or 3 weeks. So this is simply a huge pain, and we got it validated by our external customers and the audiences which we engage with.
Yeah, it really seems to be a painful issue, and you can add on top of that also around the issue of communicating that data and aggregating the data for different views. So let's say that once bugs are identified, now data should be communicated to different teams using different tools, and this process itself, on top of the basic need to analyze the data, makes the process even longer.
Yeah, I agree. And the previous survey which we have conducted is a nice transition to our key challenges, and we evaluated it across our customers, and we are serving large enterprises. And from left to right, you see prioritize 1, 2, and 3 different pains that our customers are suffering from, and the limited quality health visibility actually became the first and most challenging pain to our customers. Can you share some insights, Zvika, about these 3 pains?
Yeah, sure. So starting from left to right, really the ability to get digital quality status in a given time frame is a true challenge today. Reviewing the metrics that you've presented previously, so many permutations and so many combinations of different devices with operating system and browsers, and the need to cover everything in different priorities. It's a complicated issue for organizations today to really get, I would say, a valid picture about their quality status, what's the product health, without the need to send people back to research and identify what the issues are. And it takes me to the second bullet, which is really the analysis time, that being able to digest large amount of data. As we said, it can climb up to 11,000 test executions and even more than that. That's a lot of data to analyze, and in some cases, customers share with us that out of 100 or 200 executions, there would be potentially one failure, but maybe out of 200 or 300 tests, they will identify specific bugs. That's a lot, and currently, in many cases, they have to manually review some of the tests or find other alternatives, so it's not a scalable process. And the consumption model is also an issue. Developers like to get the data in their own environment, whether it's the IDE or the framework. They communicate usually using tools like Slack, and they less available in email, while executives prefer to get the data in a different mode, how you tie everything to CI. So really the ability to get the data on the spot, on the right timing for people to take decisions, whether it's a decision on dev level or on quality teams level, or any executive, they need to be able to get the data digested and really, I would say, efficient for their decision-making process.
So thanks, Vika. And looking at the 3 challenges, pains, we actually can easily understand. First of all, definitely it impacts the overall SDLC. How much time it takes you to release and complete, few user stories or a full product release, MVP release. But at the end of the day, this organization, especially across the 3 different challenges, are trying to enhance the quality visibility throughout the pipeline, understand at each and every moment how the product looks like from a quality perspective. They want to meet the overall release timeline, which is, as we know, either short or getting even shorter, and also have the full alignment across the team, as you mentioned, Trika, the consumption model. Different team members, developers, testers, product owners, business, use different tools to consume the data. So the desired state from that perspective is when you are talking about fitting analysis into the existing processes and tools, is whoever is contributing and part of the agile team will be able to get visibility into the quality of the release in his own environments, whether it's an IDE, Slack, Jira, email, web browser, it doesn't matter. It should be available across the whole tool chain that they are using. So hopefully we didn't frighten anyone online, but this is today's reality in the digital quality. And with that, let's drill down into what Perfecto is calling the digital Zoom solution, and talk about how each and every individual or persona in the SDLC uses and consumes the test reports, from developers to the entire Agile team. And when we're talking to developers, developers are either fixing a bug and doing a commit or just implementing a new feature, a piece of code as part of the product. It can be a responsive web, a native mobile application. And they want, as written here, to be able to see their own build status at any given point. They've done the putback or commit. They executed a very quick unit test or acceptance test. They want to get feedback to their IDE, to their environment, and understand where they're standing. On the other hand, the developers and test engineers or test automation framework manager want to get full coverage of the test scenarios, but they also want to have it in an optimized way, and this is through using tags, annotations, and different capabilities so they can easily decide what to execute when you're targeting a specific feature. You know, when you're doing only a subset of your test, they don't need to start and, juggling between the full regression suite. And as you mentioned, Zvika, regression suite can sum up to 11,000 test cases. They only want to filter the specific test and execute only the specific test. They need a way to optimize their executions. We'll also drill down and understand a bit about the flakiness of tests that can be also mitigated through tags, but that will be later on in this webinar. QA managers and executives, this was the first and most important pain, right, Zvika? So the executives and managers, want to get in their face the full quality dashboard across the digital platforms. They want to understand how the product looks like, what are the bottlenecks, can they release on time, or do they see potential risks to delays, which builds are more successful than the other, which tests are revealing more bugs than others. So that's on the executive level. And at the end of the day, the full feature team, the Agile team, want to be able to communicate in an aligned way across the team members, either through Slack, Jira, or other tools, so they're always on the same page as it comes to SDLC activities.
So I will add on top of that, Eran, as we see the diagram at the bottom, the idea is really to try and identify issues earlier in the process as much as possible. And when we make the process more efficient, things and issues will be identified earlier during dev, during unit testing. Those bugs will be addressed immediately and be communicated more efficiently. That will assist the teams to take off some of the bottlenecks and expedite the process, mainly to test more new functionality instead of working in, I would even say, as an SOS or emergency mode when things are found in production. And that has also a financial impact. We all understand that the ROI here is clear. So when we achieve better velocity and when we get an optimized user experience by that, as we deploy to production only high quality code, that has also an impact on the ROI. So the investment here is really to establish a process that provides better visibility to teams across the SDLC.
Thank you, Zvika. And with that in mind, this is where we introduced something called reporting test-driven design. Reporting test-driven design basically say, design your test automation script with the reporting in mind. And it simply says, instead of waiting and developing like in a naive method, all of these 11,000 test cases which you mentioned, Zvika, and when something fails, you need to start drilling down and understanding what is the root cause. You have no way of filtering across platforms, across features and functional areas. So simply design the test with a context in a structured way, so you can customize your reports upon the execution end. And this allows you to better find issues faster, fix issues faster, and also understand what are your bottlenecks, which are your, I would say, from 20-80% weight which are the 20% of the test cases which always find bugs, while you have heavier test cases which are simply being executed either in a flaky way or simply they're not adding value to execution. So you can find a lot of benefits when you put structure and context into your test from the development stage, not at the end of the execution. When you're starting to develop your test, put the structure, context, tags. As you can see on the bottom of the screen, this is taken from the SDK tutorial which we have online. You put the test start, the test step, the test stop. This is our SDK. It's very easy, very intuitive to use, and allows you to implement this RTDD as part of your functional test automation. It doesn't matter which test framework you are using, which IDE, it works across the different plethora of our supported frameworks.
Correct, Eran. So it's very important to say that, the structure of the test and the notion when test is starting, and be clear about that and add as much as context as possible in addition to the test name, like those tags. And those tags will help us later to slice and dice the data, to build the report and the visibility that we as managers or as testers need. We can just, focus the view to answer some critical answers that we have from a quality perspective. We can break long tests using a logical structure of test steps that are added and create sort of bookmarks in our report. And we recently introduced a document around that with best practices that we've collected from different customers, enterprise customers that use the Digital Zoom solution from Perfecto. And we see some examples here for tags, like it can start from the activity name or the CI server name. It can be the screen orientation, like we test specific script in landscape or portrait mode. It's mainly important in tablets as we have specific use cases. The name of the activity that is being tested, like banking check deposit or login scenario, all these elements really add significant value that help the user build dashboards on that base on the one hand, and on the other hand, find that needle in the haystack very, very quickly as we can really specify the view that we want to get post the production itself, and we'll see it live in a demo in a couple of minutes.
Yes, again, as the benefits of the tagging strategy, this is the slide here. You can see the two main benefits which you gain by implementing the tags. One of them, you're getting a heat map based on your tags. So if you want, as the manager, to see how your regression suites are looking, how your unit tests are looking, which build numbers perform better, you'll have a heat map just based on the tags as you design it. It's a custom made test report heat map for your own product. In addition, once you have this heat map, the distribution for analysis across the development team, if you are tagging it by iOS builds, iOS numbers, versions, different environments, different teams, by having this heat map, you can also distribute across the different teams the different reports for fixing and further action items. So this is some of the benefits of the tagging strategy. And, specifically to our SDK, to our reporting product, the way it's being built, and we'll soon see it live, is that you have first this heat map, the dashboard for managers, executives, that they can drill down and understand how the overall product looks like. Then, and this is the second visual here, they can see the suite level reports, how the suite is being built and how it's being distributed across the different executions. And you can see where you have the red failures here, you can simply click on them and get to the right hand visual, and this is the single test report. So you're getting actually 3 layers of reports, and this is serving the different personas in the organization, from executives to QA managers to developers who need to deal with the different test results artifacts and understand where the root cause and the failure lies in. And when I'm talking about the artifacts, the developers are getting from the reporting product a large set of insights per each of the executions. It includes logs, videos, screenshots, stack traces, vitals such as CPU and memory information, the network pickup file showing the traffic insights from the execution. It can be exported through the public APIs for further processing by the different team members. So from detailed perspective and based on the tagging which you have done, you're serving the entire team from start to end towards the SDLC. So this is what Digital Zoom is all about, allowing you to implement tagging-based strategy for your test execution, better filter the results upon execution, and definitely fix faster and drive faster release cycles. In addition, and we talk about 2 or 3 weeks iteration, each and every team which we are engaging with is implementing in different maturity level continuous integration, mostly through Jenkins, but other CI servers as well. And the Digital Zoom SDK allows these teams to get at the end of the execution or each execution a CI dashboard, a detailed CI dashboard that can show them the different executions, the different builds, how they look like, which execution performed differently. You can see a trending in the duration history as well, and this allows the release manager, the product owners, the different developers, to gain higher visibility into how the CI process and workflow is moving forward across the release pipeline. Zvika, do you want to share some more insight about the CI dashboard?
Yeah, talking with lots of developers and quality teams that work in really high-paced release environment and in an agile mode, we understand that the notion of what happened before and the ability to compare like history and trending data is very important, because in many cases you'll find a team that is executing the same build even 20 or 30 times a day when release is getting closer, and you need to be able to compare and be in an ability to say my current build is better than the previous one, or the opposite, and then I have to revert some pieces of code before I deploy them or merge them into my master branch, and accordingly I need a glimpse, into my quality to be able to understand how things are looking in terms of platforms or in any other data. As from a user experience perspective, we can run the same drill here and filter the data or slice it and dice it according to the queries that interest us. From a duration perspective, it's also important to understand that we have usually a time slot where we define that a specific build, like a regression cycle, should run, or a smoke test, and any exception of that time frame has a meaning, to the build stability or the build status. It's an indicator that something is wrong, and it also gets organization to a position where they can predict what would be, for example, the cycle to release the patch to production. So if we define that we need to have a capability of releasing something in, let's say, 3 hours or 4 hours, we want to be able to be there, and we need also to track that from a time or a duration perspective. So all this is part of this new CI dashboard that really helps organization to keep up the pace, in an agile environment.
Yeah, perfect, Zvika. And just before drilling into the live demo showing the Digital Zoom in action, if you remember, the third pane was fitting into the SDLC processes and tools. So this is exactly what the Digital Zoom allows our customers to do. With Perfecto, as we have seen in the previous slide, you have the full integration to Jenkins. We are allowing through Groovy script to put the right keywords, and I will soon show you, our main knowledge base for reporting. So if you want to learn more, you can easily do it. But we integrate with Jenkins. with Slack, with Jira, and also allowing you to share these reports via email. So you have the full tool chain processes working with each IDE that you choose, whether it's Eclipse, Android Studio, IntelliJ, soon Xcode, in Java, C#, Python, every development language which you care to implement and put context, tags, annotations, whatever you need as part of your own project, so you'll be able to better analyze at the end of each execution and drive better agility and velocity. And as you can see on the right and left visuals on this slide, this is just taken from our product. This is the Jira integration. On the right hand, this is the Slack integration. And soon, Zvika will show us how to actually implement it live in our environment. So before I'm passing the demo, I just want to share with the audience, if you want to read more, this is the developers.perfectomobile.com website. You simply navigate to developer.perfectomobile.com. You will see the reporting menu here, and there you will find the full details on how to implement it, what are the best practices, how to use the tags, which we have discussed, what is reporting test-driven development, how it's being used. You can see the implementation examples, sample code, videos, FAQs, everything you need, including the Jenkins plugin. So simply navigate and learn more. And with that, let's transition to you, Zvika, and show a live demo.
Thank you, Eran. So I would like to take you first and foremost to see from a scripting perspective how the SDK is really taking place in the test itself. And as we mentioned before, the three major pieces of the SDK is the beginning or the test start, API call or command, where we declare that a new test is being executed with the test name and the ability to add specific tags that are attached to that test. Then we have steps. The logical steps that we presented before really help us to separate or aggregate specific commands under the same logical idea or structure. So you can see that we have multiple test steps that are embedded here, and each one of them really declares the beginning of a new step. And by the end of that, we have also the test stop and the ability to print to the console the status and get the start trace to be presented later on using a try and catch mode. And in addition to that is the ability to print the URL for the report back to the framework, back to Jenkins, and use it later on as really the link to access the report, as we'll see in a minute. So the idea of the test that I'm having here is running on the Perfecto Optimizer website. As I guess that the audience know, Eran is responsible also for the Perfecto Index that really helps our customers to optimize their digital coverage and build accordingly the optimized digital lab. So there is an ability to browse to that website and according to few characteristics of each and every organization to build the right set of devices, taking under consideration also geography issues. So I'm running few steps within that application. It is a responsive web mode or design test that runs on few digital platforms in parallel. As I have some native pop-ups there, I'm using the injection of cookie in order to overcome that cookie and make sure that my test is not being stopped. So let's run the test and see how it looks very quickly, and together we'll drill mainly to the report itself to see how it looks like. So I'm selecting a random iOS device as well as random Android device, and also running on one web machine. The test is browsing again to the optimizer website, selecting a set of devices and locations, and setting a set of clicks. You can see now also a Windows machine that is running the same test. And by the end of the execution, as I've just showed, we have the ability to print the report URL. I'll get it back to my IDE, and I will be able to browse to view those reports. So we see that all three tests probably passed. We'll wait for the last test to...
And Zvika, this demo is developed in Java, but Digital Zoom can work in any remote WebDriver language, right? C#, Python, and so forth, right?
Exactly. So when we say open and integrated, we do support majority of scripting languages: Java, JavaScript, C#, Python, Ruby, different execution frameworks. From TestNG to JUnit to Mocha, Jasmine, WebDriver IO, and many more, really to fit to any environment that customer is using today. So first and foremost, I get, if I also use, and usually I use my Jenkins account, I can get by the end of the execution to my Slack channel, a same link to a specific job or a specific build that is running in my lab, and accordingly I get a filter view. This is for a previous job. You can see that I have a specific tag for the build number. This is my job name, and I can see my digital report that includes different environments from Windows to Android to iOS. And this is what we call the grid or the report library. This is really the heart of the system, or we define it as the suite level report. We say 11,000 tests. You can see the number, and in 3 weeks, it's a significant amount of tests that I need to absorb, analyze, and understand different elements. So the best way, speaking about CI, would be to really define, let's say that I want to focus really on the last 7 days, and I want to group by elements that are attached to my CI environment. So I can take the job and the job number, and you can see on the left bar around that I get different groups according to the Jenkins job that created in my environment. We can see that we have some failures around those jobs, so we would definitely would like to expand this view. By the way, you can see names of new CI tools that are already supported in Perfecto as well, like Circle CI, so it's really expanding as we go. Again, here in my Appium test, you can see that my previous build was failing, and I had like 5 failures here and 4 tests that passed, and I want to understand why. I can see here that it's almost the same test, but I see different devices here. So the first thing that I would do is to narrow the issue, and I'll focus really on the red part. As we hear many customers say, guys, green is green, so why bother? Let's focus really on what's interesting us, which is to identify the bugs and the issues. So I filter by the status of the fail test, and I can see that I have the same test failing on 2 iOS devices with different OS versions. One important thing that I can also get from here is to understand the tagging mechanism that was implemented for these test cases. We can see that these tests are running under a specific association of Appium, part of probably a master branch part 3 here. I have the name of the team that was executing the test and the activity that was being tested, like the iOS notes. It's a native test, and this test was identified as a second retry. In this case, I can see different tags for different tests, and from that I can understand more data that will give me the context without, getting back to the office and ask, okay, who ran this test? Can you help me identify to understand to where these tests belong? And it will probably be something that will require a lot of time from my side. So once I have all this notion, again, I can add different filters from platform perspective, like the browser or a specific device. These are the top most used ones, but I also have, the full list of the devices available in my lab. I can select a specific OS or go again to the tags, and in the tags I can also decide if I want to include or exclude specific tags, and by that, for example, jump to a different test where I can see different platforms running different tests. So now I would like to drill down and really understand what was the nature of the failure here. And as you can see, I have my logical steps here from the first one of navigate to optimizer. If you remember, it looks like, it looks like that from the script side. So I have my first logical step, navigate to optimizer here. This is the way that I get it on the other side of the ocean. And I can see the specific commands that I had under this logical step. The next step, which is injecting the cookie, and here the last step with the failed command. As you can see, I have a screenshot here, but I can also switch to a video mode where I can see my logical steps marked on the video timeline, and with some cool features like fast forward and full screen mode, I can really investigate the issue in detail. But more important than that is the ability to learn the nature of the failure from the stack trace that I have. I can see that I have a specific element with ID Brazil that wasn't found, and that would be the thing that I would like to communicate to the dev team. So with that, we can really skip to the JIRA issue. As you saw, I have a bug icon here on my single test report where I can click and open a new bug to JIRA. So we had an issue around Brazil, and we want to make sure that this issue is being transmitted and communicated to the relevant dev team. So I can add really a summary that is stating what the nature of the issue, and to make the bug issuance more concrete, I want to add data that will take the discussion really to a focus mode. So I can add screenshots, and I can add the specific command and the specific test name, even the stack trace as an attachment to my file. But what's most important is the ability to add also the URL for the report, so that any tester or developer later on will be able to log in and to see the same view that I'm seeing now. So when I generate the issue, I can also later on track the bug status. And I think that from a CI perspective, Eran, as we mentioned before, it's really important for us to get one of the two options. If it's a high priority test, we need to make sure that we also prioritize the fix immediately to dev, because let's say that it's P1 and it's a test that, as you saw, failed on a very important iPhone device that, has a significant usage from our customer base. On the other hand, if it's a low priority issue, we want to make sure that we comment out or skip this test from our framework or CI side, so that we won't have multiple failures later on. We all agree that we want to make sure that our build stays green as much as possible. The important thing here, around from a traceability perspective, is the ability to tie specific bugs and specific issues to test cases. As you see here, we can understand per each test case which bugs are open and which bugs are new, and by that focus our fix efforts accordingly and make sure that the execution is also supportive for that code. So
yes, again, just a comment. I think that, and being in this space for so many years and serving roles as QA manager in the past, people always ask, okay, I'm wasting a lot of my time, and we talked about 11,000 test cases, executing these functional tests on so many platforms. Are they valuable or not? I think that with these analytics, dashboards, and showing all of these visual bugs and states to the management, you can actually get insights whether my tests are flaky, whether my tests are actually adding value to finding issues build after build, or I'm just wasting my time. So I think that this large amount of analytics which we are adding on top of the test execution cycle through CI, Jira, dashboards, your test cases themselves, the logical test cases themselves, I think provides a lot of value at the end of the day to the entire team.
As you just said, Eran, we need to be able to communicate things and make sure that management see the view in order to support release decisions. And this is exactly where our heat map is taking place. This is, I like to describe it as a really quality status or the risk map in a given time frame. So here I've selected for this example the last 7 days. You can see that I have the same test, the digital Zoom reporting demo that I've just shown running in different environments on Android, on iOS, and on Windows. So I've selected as the first level of grouping my test, and on the second level, the device. I think that in this case, it's very easy to see where risk or where we have risk, which is above 75%, above 50%, around 50%, and where, you know, the better areas that we have. We can also search by different parameters. So if I'm searching for iOS, it will give me the specific touching areas. We can see if we'll take, you know, a wider view of the last 30 days, and we'll take off, you know, and try to go according to tags and maybe devices. So we'll be able to see that, you know, the picture is even wider, or when we talk about 11,000 tests, I'm sorry, you'll be able to see almost 20,000 tests here. So finding, you know, the needle in the haystack in this view is more challenging than just the few hundred tests that you saw a minute ago. And be able from here to identify risk is even more important. All the things that you see here can be saved. So we have, you know, saved view that we can skip between as part of our morning routine. It's also, you know, applicable for here for the grid view. So we can really skip between different views as part of a specific process that we have, and later on even compare one version to the previous one. And, you know, teams can share those views. We can choose whether the views are shareable or private one. And on top of all that, as you just show, we have our CI dashboard that really helps us to see a specific job or build status and be able to compare it in an historical point of view to things that happened previously from a CI perspective.
So I think, Zvika, just to summarize what we have seen so far, we have introduced the reporting test-driven development that at its heart, we are looking at smart tagging, putting context into the logical test steps. So at the end of the day, we'll exactly see what you're showing, large data being easily sliced and diced and analyzed towards a very fast root cause analysis and fixing, so you actually can continue to meet your agile velocity release schedules. And as we have seen in this webinar, the mobile space is just continuously growing, and we are going to actually see a larger amount of test cases being executed automatically between each build. So having this dashboard, these tools as part of your daily routine simply saves you a lot of time. And being specific, organizations today are spending way longer time than they have between half and full day just to analyze what you're currently showing on the screen. So I think the value here seems to me very clear, and as a requirement, something that organizations need to adopt as soon as possible. So with that in mind, Zvika, I think that we're reaching the end of today's webinar. As mentioned, we have the developers.perfectomobile.com webpage dedicated just to our full product portfolio with a reporting segment, as you're showing right now, allowing the audience to continue and drill down, see live demos, and how to implement, integrate with Jira, with Slack, with Jenkins, seeing some recommended tags and everything. So with that, Zvika, I would like to thank you for joining me today in this webinar. And hopefully you will find great value in this implementation, and we hope to see you in the next webinar.